Gary, so tell me a little about the book that you wrote with Steve Buckman entitled The Forgotten Pollinators. In particular, I'm curious about pollination systems. What do you mean by pollination system?
Well, really, it's a partnership between plants and animals. So a plant like this has a specific pollinator, and every different kind of flower attracts a particular sort of pollinator. Other flowers might attract moths or butterflies or bees. This is probably a plant that's evolved to attract hummingbirds. And when a hummingbird visits its flower to get nectar from inside this tube, some pollen here rubs off on its feathers, and it takes that pollen to the next plant, thereby affecting cross-pollination, cross-fertilization, and this is what gives us seed set and the genetic variation that fuels plant diversity.
Gary, now that we have a pollination system described, your book implies that there's a problem associated with the pollination system. What exactly is this problem?
Well, the problem is that we have a number of bird and mammal pollinators that are endangered globally, about 200 species. A lot of these are migratory hummingbirds and bats that have either lost habitat where the plants that they rely on in the summer grow, or their migratory corridor between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico has been disrupted.
So things en route while they're moving from Mexico to Canada may be really important to conserve. What's being done to deal with this problem?
Well, fortunately, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico have joined some tripartite agreements that are tracking the status of rufous hummingbirds, nectar-feeding bats, monarch butterflies, and we're beginning to see them look at the roost sites and the habitat quality there to ensure that all three countries have enough habitat to enjoy the continued presence of these pollinators.
So this, do you think, will turn into a real multinational conservation effort?
It's beginning to work, and that's a great thing.
That's amazing. You know, one of my favorite plants that's pollinated by birds here in the desert is the ocotillo. These ocotillos are the strangest looking plant, 16-foot high branches reaching up to the sky. What's going on? What's the story with this plant?
Well, it's one of the great stories of a plant adapted to migratory pollinators because the different stands of ocotillo bloom sequentially northward from Mexico, and as the hummingbirds migrate northward, it's usually in synchrony with the sequential flowering of different ocotillo populations. But this flower has so much nectar. You can even taste it as you suck.
You can taste it.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And kids all around the Southwest just love to suck the sweet nectar. A lot of plants don't have as much nectar, so this one attracts all kinds of pollinators in addition to the ones that co-evolved with it.
I imagine this is a good source of free water in the desert for many birds.
That's right, and wherever they bloom, it becomes a major source of moisture.
So how about a big oriole that comes along, has a big, huge, long bill. Now, if that goes down into this flower, it's going to strip open that thing
That's
up
right.
like that. Is it
But
going to
look
destroy
at the
the
length.
flower?
No, look at the length of those stamens that have all the pollen on them. Even if you don't go in directly, you get a lot of pollen rubbed off on your feathers from the other flowers here. So they're working as a cluster, and
So
that's
they'll
a great
still be
thing about them.
successful pollinators.
That's right.
So when we're talking about pollinator systems, the conservation of a pollinator system, we mean the maintenance of both players in this game. And
That's right.
If one goes, the whole system goes.
Yeah, it's a partnership, and for the first time, conservationists are talking about conserving relationships, not just isolated species.
So in fact, saving a little insignificant bird like the verdin or something is having an impact on a much broader range of organisms, plants in particular, plants in your yard.
And also our crops. If we lose all the pollinators in this country, if we don't maintain the wild pollinators other than the honeybee, we can expect $8 billion in increased food costs in this country because of the decline in crop yields. So it feeds back on us too. This isn't just wildlife food. This is the very basis of the human diet too.
Saving a nice little solitary bee may be doing a lot more of broader significance economically than one would think.
That's right. We say that for every third bite we eat, we should be thanking a pollinator.
All right.
And there's all these aesthetic pleasures as we've just seen too.
Neat.